Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sohum Reactions. Today's album request comes from Ben, who suggests that we listen to the entirety of The Unforgettable Fire by U2. This is their fourth studio album, released in 1984, and is now my third full album reaction to U2. If you're new here, I first listened to Joshua Tree, then Achtung Baby, and now we're kind of winding the clocks back to this record. And it's U2, so I couldn't be more excited for what we have in store today because their production has been on point with every single track, all of the guitar work, the ambient atmospheres that are created, the melodies, the lyrics, it is all sublime. And the one thing that had me particularly interested about this reaction today is the fact that on their Wikipedia page, and I'm just looking right here, this album, Unforgettable Fire, is listed as an art rock post-punk record. I mean, dude, art rock and post-punk are very infrequently trodden genres. And if you compare that to Joshua Tree, I believe Joshua Tree was straight up rock, and I believe Achtung Baby was listed as alt rock. So we are completely, I feel like, taking a left turn when it comes to art rock and post-punk. Yeah, I'm very, very curious to hear how these songs come to pass, if there's a difference at all in the song structures and the melodies and the production. We'll find all of that out together today. But once again, a massive thank you to Ben for the album request and bringing some more U2 to the channel. But now, my friends, let's sit back, relax, grab a drink, grab your snacks, and let's enjoy some awesome music. Let's jump in. Production is gnarly. So far, so good.
The city walls are all brought down. The dust of smoke screen all around. See faces plowed like fields that once gave no resistance. I relive by the side of
rips it up. It's Bono vocals for you. Cool. Let's talk about it, man. That song feels like a spiritual awakening, or maybe a sort of reawakening, to reference a sort of homecoming here. The journey of life is very up and down. Obviously, you don't need to hear me say that. And whenever we come home, it doesn't mean physical home, it means a place of tranquility. And definitely in terms of the dynamics of this song, I feel like we had that almost like Gaussian distribution of slightly, the tails, they're very flattened towards the ends, and you slowly but surely rise to these intense moments in the middle, and then we fall back down again towards the end. And I've talked plenty about U2's song structures and the way that they slowly allow the tides of the song to rise and then subtly fall down. I think something similar is happening here in terms of not only the production, but the intensity that we hear in Bono's vocals. And that's probably where I will draw most of our attention to for this track. I feel like in some moments, Bono is holding himself back. He's showing a level of restraint, which is, of course, very hard when you want to just sing all out because you feel the emotion already, but he's patient. He allows the moment in the music to really he allows the moment in the instrumentation around him to really let's say indicate to him whether or not he should actually allow the dam to break and allow all of that energy to finally become unleashed. Because in those moments when he does, whether it's in his falsetto or the pure belts or his vocals almost cracking and getting a little bit more rough around the edges, it is all immediately preceded by that feeling of emotional and physical restraint in his voice. So for me, by the time he actually does give one of those releases, whether it's in the belt, falsetto, the whatever, it's well earned and super, super satisfying to listen to. Another thing that I noticed is that in this song, the bass was far more obvious in terms of the individual notes that were being played there relative to the guitar. And actually, for the most part, the guitar in this song seemed to pretty much come in the form of a few outlined chords or massive strummed chords that would just be sustained throughout the remainder of the measure. So weirdly enough, the guitar chords, that kind of wall of sound that's produced from guitar normally, felt like it was swimming around the bass notes that were more prominent. Yeah, and they do such a good job at building atmosphere, even when there are no vocals or no obvious instruments taking over the spotlight. It is just so enjoyable to live in that atmosphere they've created. So, very typical of U2 to start off with a bang. Let's see where we go. Quieter here.
One man washed on an empty beach. One man betrayed with a kiss. In the name of love, one more in the name of love. In the name of love, one more in the name of love.
Ooh. It's an interesting strumming pattern. Reminds me of the 1975.
Early morning, April 4. Shut rings out in the Memphis sky.
Oh, good flip.
They took your life. They could not take your pride. In the name of love, one more in the name of love. In the name of love, one more in the name of love. In the name of love, one more in the name of
You could just loop on this section endlessly. The lighters go up. That's nice. Yeah, the delivery for In the Name of Love, I feel like is everything. All of that energy, kind of that, it sort of got hinted at with the first song, but I think got really accentuated and punched in with Bono's delivery of In the Name of Love. That feels like an extremely, not only important line in the song, but a climactic moment for the album in general. And, you know, when it comes to love, shout it as loud as you'd like from the mountaintops. I think everybody is going to get behind a vocal performance like that, because we all love, at least we all should, in my opinion. It's interesting. So I kind of commented a little bit about the strumming pattern. What I realized is the strumming pattern is actually very simple. It is just a bunch of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and it's a very fast tempo song, simple actual pattern in the strumming. What I liked about the strumming though was the effect on the guitar itself. It felt like any single chord that was strummed would persist for another eighth note, for example. So at any given time, you'd be hearing the first strum if it was the first beat, and then by the second beat, or the and of the one, you would then hear once again the first strum, but echoed. So you would have a version of whatever's being played in the current moment, so contemporaneously, and the echo from before, and it would keep this like incrementally growing feeling despite the pattern and the strumming being very standard and simple. And that's why I brought up, there's a 1975 song which I listened to a while ago. This is like a British pop rock group that probably you have or haven't listened to, I don't know. But they will utilize similar like strumming patterns and effects on their guitars. So that kind of brought me back to that moment. I would say that this song especially had a very pop rock upbeat kind of a feel, super like straight up in terms of structure, and it like pretty much lends itself very easily and quickly to the entire arena singing along. It has this anthemic feel to it. As soon as Bono starts singing "In the Name of Love," we are all going to start singing "In the Name of Love." There's no way around that, in my opinion. One other thing that I am noticing, the utilization of the electric guitar when it's not being used for strictly strumming is often for outlining the arpeggios in the chords that are being strummed. So you'll have, like, let's say your standard C major chord, your 1, 3, and 5, your C, your E, and your G, then all at once played on one guitar, and then in the other played incrementally. So you have your C, then your E, then your G, and they kind of stack on top of one another until then the next chord that gets played, and then you do the same procedure for the next one, but all the while allowing each and every single one of those notes to ring out. So kind of how I mentioned for the first song, how the chords were allowed to ring out and the bass was kind of swimming in that pool. It's a version of that happening here with the arpeggiated notes in the guitar with the strumming in the other guitar. So a bit of a shifting in the roles there. I felt like the bass was a little bit less pronounced in this one. But another cool song. This one to me feels like it would have a lot more mainstream appeal. So I think it definitely appealed to me. That's for sure. Let's jump into the next one. And so far, I'm not getting where the art rock genre is coming from. So let's see if we can figure that out. Interesting. I don't know how to describe this. lot of echo effects. This section throws me off. It's like more spacious, a little bit more ambient. Oh, that definitely felt like the most out there song so far. Artsy for sure, maybe experimental is the right way to put it, but definitely stands apart in my mind from the first two that we heard. And like right away, it establishes it establishes itself. The tongue twisters get me. Using all of the crazy texture, all of the scratchiness and the strumming, all of the dynamic little hits of the percussion. Like it was even hard to pick out some of the effects that were being attached to these instruments. Like I feel like almost what's happening is like one layer, let's say it's the guitar, for example, is being taken 3-4 times, even maybe panned at different levels and different effects being applied to each individual layer rather than one layer having 4 effects on it, creating this very hard to wrap your brain around texture. And what's interesting about that is because it's relatively speaking very fast and frenetic feeling, the tempo of the song feels faster than I think objectively it is. So it's a very fast-paced listen in my mind, which then converts, it kind of like transmutes when we enter that more spacious, like ambient section, like I was referring to. It was more legato, and the legato part wasn't necessarily like in the typical way we assume that to be, where we, melismatically go through many notes like in a violin, for example. Instead, it was almost like I was hearing a guitar chord being strummed and played out, and then instead of like the chord persisting and just like existing at the same level in front of us, it would like travel away. So the chord that's being played, you hear it at its loudest in the beginning, and then it slowly kind of becomes more and more distant. So instead of the texture in that section, what's interesting about the spaciousness there is you can actually, if you were in a room, watch that note kind of walk out the door. And then the same thing would happen again with some other notes or chords. And then we would return all the way back to that crazy textural stuff. And I like that on top of that, in those more eclectic sections, I guess you can call it, Bono is going a little bit more crazy on his vocals as well. But even in those sections, you could hear an effect on his voice echoing himself. So even in the sections without the obvious transient energy, you can still hear those echoey effects in the textural place. So it's happening everywhere. It's a matter of like how much is happening when. And then by the end, I really like the fact that we had that sort of staccato delivery from Bono paired with that, like, I want to call it like either syncopated or like pulsing choir sound. It was hard for me to tell if it was coming from like a synthesizer or if it was actually a choir there. But for me, Wire is the most experimental artsy track of the record thus far. And I guess to use the song title, it definitely had a wiry kind of feel in those rockier sections. I don't know how many more synonyms I can come up with here, but a wild song, probably going to take a few other re-listens to get my brain all familiar with everything that's happening here. But on a first pass, definitely brings the energy and kind of puts me in a separate, gives me like a separate set of energies here. I don't even know like what I'm supposed to come away feeling from a song like Wire. Like if I think of like the idea of like feeling wired, then like you'll have that kind of that anxious energy where you drank like too many cups of coffee that day. You're like sleepy, or how can I say this? You're tired, you're exhausted, you're like redlined, but you're not sleepy. That kind of thing. Let's see where we go from here. What do we got next? Okay, this is the self-titled track. I like this already. Great groove and melodic atmosphere. So expansive. I'll tell you right now, this is my favorite song so far. Drama in that. Very distant orchestra here. Yeah, I think the self-titled track definitely lives up to the name of the album, or maybe the name was chosen from this song because of how good it is. I don't know, but that is an unforgettable fire for sure. I loved it pretty much within the first 15, 20 seconds, and I'm glad that my early feeling about this song was actually was correct. As correct as subjectivity in music is. I really liked the groove that got established very early on. Beautiful melodic atmosphere. I think for me, this chord progression was easy enough to latch onto, and because I've like heard progressions like this before, it was easy for me to know where some of like the melodic notes that would speak to me would be, and when those moments of payoff would happen, it would hit that much harder for me. Um, a few details to note. I think Bono is exceptionally good at making his voice, in addition to the atmosphere of the music, as expansive and like kind of large feeling as possible. Like somehow, some way, he's able to like take his voice, and instead of like throwing it to you like a baseball, kind of small and pointed, he is able to like throw his voice as if he's casting a net. And at some, because it's a large enough net, some part of it is going to like fall over you, and that's just enough, because this net is amorphous, it has a mind of its own, and it's going to find its full way around you until you are at its mercy. And that's exactly what a great U2 track does. It confuses you up front, or maybe it immediately hooks you in, but at some point you are in that world, you are fully immersed. And because the world itself is expansive, you have so much within it to explore. That's at least the way that it comes across to me. And I feel like with Bono, like one of the small ways that he'll add to the atmosphere is in that exasperated breathing, is literally pumping CO2 into the mix. It's a very human thing to do. I think it's one of the smarter things that vocalists and producers do in general, is letting the listener hear the voice, because, hey, they're taking breath. They aren't just a robot singing pitches that are impossible for the average person to sing. It feels a lot more human of a performance, which I really like. And I mean, what can I say? The melody itself is so beautiful. When the strings come in, it is so beautiful. We had a lot of quieter notes, but they were natural harmonics that would kind of sit below the strings and would very, I guess, infrequently crop up, but when they did, they were noticed. And I forget the section specifically where this happened, but there were a lot of like dramatic kind of punches, like swings with the orchestra, that I felt really gave this song additional character. So to me, even though it had a familiar chord progression and melodic motif, a lot of the strategy in terms of the songwriting, the arrangement, and then the production sets this song apart for me. Like if you were to compare the chord progression here to other songs with a similar progression, I feel like this track would sound far more interesting than the others that may be out there. But if I had that counterfactual example, I would share it right now. I just don't have it off the top of my mind. But let's keep going. This next one is Promenade. Guys, at the end of this reaction, I will be ranking all the songs, at least my top 3.
Words that build or destroy, dirt, dry bones, sand and stone. Barbed wire fence cut me down. I'd like to be around in a spiral staircase to the higher ground. I like a fire and explode. Roman candle lightning lights of the sky.
A lot of beautiful bright textures. Kind of reminds me of Black Shape. if you've heard of that band.
Crack streets trampled underfoot, sidestep, sidewalk. I see you stare into space. Have I got closer now behind the face? Oh, tell me, you dance with me, turn me around tonight, up through spiral staircase to the higher ground. Slideshow, seaside town, Coca-Cola, football, radio, 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 radio.
And a fade out. Super short, super sweet. I mean, it's a very pretty song, and I feel like if the next song doesn't extend off of this, there may be a little bit left wanting, because I feel like this is such a beautiful intro to a longer kind of a track. So my assumption, and just in general with like concept albums and just art rock in general, is that all of the music will have some through line to it, whether it's conceptual in terms of meaning or melody or the overarching movement that becomes the focus for us. So I'm going to kind of view the experience with Promenade in a more abstract kind of way, because I feel like a lot of the details that I appreciate about this song, I would have appreciated if it existed in a larger one. A lot of those bright textures, beautiful melodies, simple, gentle vocals, and they eventually all dissipate into the quiet of the sea, seemingly, the seaside town. You know, a song like Promenade is like the kind of track that is, in my opinion, it wouldn't be released as a single. It is like a pure album track, and I don't know this to be the case, but a lot of this style of song, they end up getting skipped on re-listens from even adoring fans. Like I can think of so many different, albums in my own library where there will be like 13 songs that I love, and then there's like a 45-minute-and-a-half track that I really, really like, but because there's not enough, let's say, fleshing out of that individual track, I'll end up skipping it if it's not relevant in the context of the album. And that also just depends on your own propensity to listen to a full album from start to finish, or if you're the kind of person who shuffles all over the place. I'm a bit crazy. I do both. I can listen to music fully chronologically. I can listen to it completely out of order. For me, the joy is just to listen to music in whatever form it comes to me in. So a song like this, I really appreciate for the melody. I really appreciate for the vibe. I'm just curious to see how it fits into the rest of this landscape. Oh, it looks like they're lacking. They don't got the the lyrics for 4th of July here. We'll do it like that. love this bass. I'm thinking Alice in Chains. Wow. I almost feel like I want to put Promenade and 4th of July together. Like, both of these songs rather short, almost feel like they belong together. Not because of the fact that they're short, but they God, how can I put this? It's like the first song is like a hinting at the exploration that could have come, and then 4th of July is that exploration. But for a song titled 4th of July, you think very nationalistic, you think very brass, you think very pomp. Those weren't the qualities of this song. In fact, most of this song to me was extremely spacious. A lot of it definitely is part of the like production excellence. Like that's like the main part of the focus here, because you can hear like the forward positioning of the bass that at some point like had me thinking like this is kind of like Alice in Chains vibes if we were to like crank it up that much more and take it a heavier route. But because we didn't go fully in that direction, I'm thinking, okay, well, the bass is going to be pronounced, it's going to be up front, what's going on in the background. And as I started to focus on the background rather than the foreground, then I noticed like the synths kind of emerging from the cosmos towards us, but never quite reaching us, almost like asymptotically you reach this limit that you always are nearing and you're always getting closer, but are you? There's that like philosophical paradox where every, like, let's say we're 1 meter apart. Every time I get half the distance close to you, now it's half meter, then a quarter, then an eighth, and a 16th. I'm getting closer, but because I'm always making my way halfway towards you, I will never actually make it to you. And there's a lot of different ways, like physicists talk about this question, philosophers and mathematicians, they break down this paradox, but that's just a version of what the synths kind of feel like to me. They're approaching, they never quite reach us. And the guitars, the clean tone, kind of are like the olive branch being extended to the synths to bridge that distance. And I think they do kind of bleed over one another a little bit. So by the time that you hear the guitars kick in, then the sort of, because the catharsis, the alignment of all of those elements feels more fluid and salient. But that's also like this such an unusual set of things to think and feel for a song titled 4th of July. I don't know where the idea for this song came to pass. Yeah, very interesting experience for sure. I think I'll pair that with Promenade.
If you twist and turn away, if you tear yourself into again, if I could, yes I would, if I could, I would let it go.
Oh, I like that bass.
Surrender this looking. If I could throw this lifeless lifeline to the wind, leave this heart of clay.
drums feel a little bit punchier now.
into the half-lights and through the flames.
And you hear the alternating chords in the strummed guitar there.
If I could through myself set your spirit free, I'd lead your heart away.
Sing it.
See you break away into the lights and to the day.
This song is quite the burn. It's quite the slow burn, but it's been burning up. We are getting there to an unstoppable place. Yeah, man. Oh.
I'm not sleeping. Oh
The Wide Awake was everything here. All of that build to Wide Awake. You could end this song, I'd be happy. It's that good.
If you should ask, then maybe they'd tell you what I would say. True colors fly in blue and black through silken sky and burning flag. Colors crash, collide in bloodshot eyes. If I could, you know I would. If I could, I would let it go.
Oh, I thought we were ramping up again. We might still.
Dislocation, separation, condemnation, revelation, incantation, isolation, desolation. Let it go. And so fade
Oh, the drums.
so let it go. And so fade away. So let it go. And so to fade away. I'm wide awake. I'm wide awake. I'm not sleeping.
Yo, dude. His Wide Awakes. The Wide Awakes. Ah, that feels like catharsis, man. Seemingly, that's like a lot of the U2 experience is just like finding your own footing once again, and all of it was always there to begin with. You rise up in terms of energy, the energy that's been culminating. It's like that potential energy within, and as it rises, you're going to want to strike while the iron's hot. And of course, the iron is very obviously hot. You're just going to have to take your moment, take your opportunity, and then the Wide Awake hits, the energy subsides, and then the second half of the song becomes another ramp. Like, this track, uniquely enough to me, is like it would almost be okay to like split it fully in half, because it's almost a linear progression to the first Wide Awake, and then there's a bit of a drop off, and then another progression that brings the second Wide Awake up to an even more intense level. And I think with Bono's delivery, he kind of like puts that exclamation point on the final go around here with Wide Awake. Like, dude, I love when his voice cracks, falls apart, breaks. That is just the screamo head in me, the metal head in me, the hard rock listener in me that appreciates any time where the human voice just collapses onto itself like a dying star. It is just so beautiful to me. One thing that I think you all noticed very early on with me is the sort of like tambourine sound that was like persistently traveling through our headphones. If you are wearing headphones, I hear the tambourine-ish sound starting in my left and then quickly echoing and traveling to the right. And then that kind of pattern would repeat against all of the outlining, chords and notes from the guitar that help permeate the atmosphere and create the melodic feel for things. Like those two components alone do quite a bit in terms of making the song sound very unique. And by the time like we get the descending bass hit into the drums, I feel like we're just cooking with gas at that point. There's so much that's interesting rhythmically and melodically that all you really have to do is just keep that gravy train running and grow the energy gradually. And Bono definitely nails it. Even though the sort of movement was telegraphed, the way that movement unfolded was not expected in my mind. And that's kind of the beauty of great music, is even if you can predict the overall movement of the energy, because oftentimes songs will grow more intense by the end, it's the way in which that song grew, the specific details that make it worth re-listening, for example. And just as a separate reference here, I love to rewatch scenes from movies or TV shows that have, for whatever reason, spoke to me. Like lately, I've been rewatching a lot of like scenes from Better Call Saul, and not only am I revisiting the songs or you can apply this to music too, by the way, but we're talking about TV. The reason I revisit them is not only because the show is so good and there's so much storyline that's there to be relived, but you also notice more details the second time around. And when you kind of start engaging with art out of order, even though you've experienced it all linearly, you come away with more of the finer details that you would have missed at the outset. So like I get to appreciate more of the specific nuance in the way that a certain line was delivered the fourth time around versus the first. And as that knowledge cumulatively grows, I feel like the experience of any art compounds within the enjoyer that much more. So I can totally imagine it being the case that for all of you who've been listening to U2 for so long, feel this exact way, where you hear the song, you hear the ramp, and your focus is not on where the ramp goes, but on all of the subtleties that make the ramping up that much more interesting, because we know that the payoff is coming, but wasn't the writing so good? Wasn't it worth listening to the dialogue once again and hearing the subtle change in inflection in that moment, or whatever the example is? It's just all too fun to listen to. And I feel like it's nice that despite those apex moments being more telegraphed and being like obvious, that doesn't take away from any of the enjoyment. A great show will be great even though you know what's going to happen, even though you know the plot. It's still worth rewatching, or with a song in mind, re-listening to. U2, they are exactly like that. Like I've listened to a handful of U2 tracks now after the fact, and the more as I say, the more and more I digest of U2, the more and less that I understand. It's kind of like a Dunning-Kruger, where I pick up on more of the details, but then the revelation of those details has me realize that there's so much more complexity to what they're doing that doesn't initially meet the eye. My effort here is just to try to pick up on as much as I can on a first pass, and hopefully it it meets the mark. But that was such a tremendous song, probably going in my top 3 as well. Whoa, it just got so close.
In the ocean could swim deep the sky, like there, I don't know why. In the forest there's a clearing, I run there toward the light. Sky,
Oh, nice syncopation.
it's blue sky. In the earth a hole deep, deep decide. If I could, I would. Up for air to swim against the tide. Hey, hey, hey. Up toward the sky. It's blue sky. To lose along the way, the spark that set the flame, to flicker and to fade, on this the longest day.
I gotta pull it back. I missed something.
It's blue sky. In the earth a hole deep, deep decide. If I could, I would. Up for air to swim against the tide. Hey, hey, hey. Up toward the sky. It's blue sky.
Yeah, the continual hitting of the bass and the syncopation is all so nice.
To lose along the way, the spark that set the flame, to flicker and to fade, on this the longest day.
Interesting rhythm in those lines.
Sowing blood into my heart, sowing blood through my soul, sowing blood into my heart, sowing blood through my soul, sowing blood into my heart. You give
Wow.
yourself to this the Lord.
Thought we were gonna stay on that train for longer. The energy shifted now.
Up toward the sky.
Oh, I've said this before too, but I really appreciate that with pretty much every single U2 song, they are very self-enclosed. They don't necessarily rely on the previous track or the track that follows to paint the full picture of the individual song. It's as though you hear one song and you can be fully satiated. I believe I even said that verbatim last time. Makes for really fun listens, and I don't feel like I'm ever wanting for more within a track, unless, of course, the track is Promenade and 4th of July, which I kind of now treat as being two sides of the same coin. But besides that one example that breaks my off-the-cuff rule here, I like the approach from the very beginning of this track to just like be so far out in the distance and then just kind of run up all the way to the foreground and make itself as prominent as possible. And very early on too, once the song was like right in front of us, the bass and the syncopation in what I thought to be another element, but it actually turned out to be, I think vocals. It's like a bass vocal, like syncopated thing that's going on that creates the kind of unique feel in, and I'll call it one of the tracks in this song, because the way it felt, there's like two distinct movements in this song, and you can almost imagine it like a train. And this train, it's barreling at the station at full energy, whatever. It's unstoppable for whatever reason. The conductor has lost complete control. The train is going to stay on the tracks. The question is, are you going to shift the direction of those tracks or not? And you can do that. You can make the train go left. You can make the train go right. But the thing that will always remain the same is that the train, with all of its energy, with all of its, can't believe we keep bringing up like potential and kinetic energy, but with all of its momentum, it is going to continue barreling down. So the movement in this song in terms of dynamics happens when the gear is changed from right to left or left to right. There was a sort of faster strummed section that felt like that kind of faster paced energy, and then was followed up with a shift to that kind of syncopated groovier section. I don't know. I like the idea of the train, and interestingly, the first time it happened, I think I noted that I thought the energy was going to persist and continue to build, which it kind of did, but then that energy got channeled into a different direction. So I almost feel like, and this isn't like a slight on this song or anything, but I feel like this song, we kind of like pushed both tracks of this train track to the extreme, but like we never quite boiled it over the top. So like in terms of intensity on either track, we made it to like 80-85%, but we didn't boil over into like 105, 110, 115. That's in terms of the energy, because I think on a few of the other tracks in this record, Bono with his vocal delivery went even crazier. In a weird way, this song was a little bit more restrained from that like intense perspective, like the absolute number. But what I really appreciate about this song, outside of just like the apex moments on each of these tracks, is the fact that once you are on one of those tracks, it feels like this unstoppable hypnotic energy. And I feel like in a live performance, this entire track, well, both of the sides of this track could be expanded in a way that allows you to reach 110, 115, 120. Weirdly enough, Indian Summer Sky almost feels like two songs kind of embedded in one, with transitions that make sense between the other. But yeah, I think this one will also take another listen to figure out why the energy felt so different. Because sometimes like the transitions are smooth. I think the first time around, the transition was more jarring for me. The second time around, it made way more sense. And then I think on re-listens, I would be in the make more sense camp. I think I'll say this is probably an honorable mention song for me, but let's see where we end up. So we have, I think, two more songs. The penultimate track here, Elvis Presley and America. Maybe we link it with 4th of July. Let's see. Vocalizing there. The drumming in this is everything.
Drop me down, but don't break me.
Hear that little whammy. The drumming almost feels like a tribal beat. Tumbling all around.
Yeah.
was not expecting that song to end that way, to be that way. I really want to look up the meaning of the song before we do anything else. So let me do that real quick. Let's see. According to this Reddit post, it's a bit of a long one here. I wonder if you guys are interested in me reading this one off. I'll just do it. My analysis of Elvis Presley and America. I've listened to this song countless times since the mid-'80s, and I think I finally understand what Bono was trying to say. I think it's a song about his relationship struggles with Ali. Elvis is Bono himself. Elvis Presley in America is a song about a relationship where a man, Bono, is deeply frustrated because the woman he loves, Ali, won't be impressed by him. Throughout the lyrics, we see countless examples of how she maintains her independence while he struggles with his inability to capture her complete attention, despite being used to commanding attention from everyone else. The push-pull dynamic of their relationship is evident from the very start. The black flash over my own love suggests a darkness or barrier in their connection, while white flash sees the sky and it turns its side from you, explicitly shows her turning away from him. The repeated mentions that no one told you to, as in, and you don't, though no one told you to, emphasize that her resistance to his charm is natural, not something she learned or was warned about, but just who she is. His frustration with her indifference appears again and again when he sings, though the king that howls has howled. We see his realization that his usual commanding presence means nothing to her. The line, me and the outside tell me fade away, shows how she makes him feel peripheral, despite his usual center stage position in life. There's a lot more to this. I don't want to spend too much of your time reading the explanation of another, but I feel like that does make it a lot more clear to me what's going on here. Because I felt the discordance in their relationship, but it wasn't as clear to me as to why this dynamic was unfolding the way it was and what that meant for his own reflection, which to me, like even without having any of the lyrics here, melodically, atmospherically, this song felt extremely reflective, not only because it was quiet, but even the way in which Bono was delivering a lot of these lyrics, it felt almost as though he was giving a confessional, you know what I mean? And I feel like what I really appreciated about the way that this particular song was arranged is the fact that the drums were, for all intents and purposes, the lead engine in the energy of this song. All of the grooves that were established, these kind of tribal beats, the around the world drumming, all contributed to the energy in this song that I think was really necessary, because early on, the energy wasn't really coming through in the vocals. It felt like a version of Bono feeling a little bit more defeated and just trying to figure out like what's going on with this relationship dynamic. And I don't know if by the end he actually figures it out, or it's more of a just a recounting of this is the dynamic as it stands. But one thing's for sure, by the time we get to the end where Bono's vocals do pick up, I feel like all of the previous decisions about how the drums sounded relative to the quietness in his voice were justified. And I think there was a specific moment where the clean guitar got a little bit brighter and further in the foreground, allowing the melodic focus to shift to the guitar rather than in the vocals or the atmosphere. I think once we got to that point, then I think we got exactly what we needed in terms of energy. And I take away from this song, like, because it's kind of the penultimate track, this is something that without question is a personal maybe story from Bono's life. I can't imagine all of these, let's say, all of these intuitions, all of these questions could come from the mind of somebody not involved in the dynamic of Elvis and Ali. It seems like it is a story coming from himself, which is why I'm very appreciative of the the Reddit poster here, just to give credit where credit is due, Downtown Dex 72. If you guys just look up my analysis of Elvis Presley and America, there's the full readout of what I was reading from earlier. I'll read the last section here. By the end, when he's reduced to bits and pieces on the floor, we see the complete impact of loving someone who won't be moved by fame or status. The song even breaks down into the fragments near the end, with scattered phrases like, "So say you're sad above beside. Oh, stay, you're sad over midnight," mirroring his emotional fragmentation. Throughout all these lyrics, we see the same core story. A man used to being important and influential, completely undone by his inability to impress or hold on to the one person whose opinion matters most to him. Every verse reinforces this dynamic, her independence and his increasing desperation, as he realizes that all his usual power and charm mean nothing in the face of her unshakable self-possession. It's like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, but unfortunately, the unstoppable force is kind of stoppable because he is not recognizing that instead of putting on the charade and acting as though all of the merits societally and this external validation that he has is the key to her heart, he should realize that, in fact, it is my essence that ought to win her over. Or, in reality, our essences should align so completely with one another that there is no winning over. It's more a discovery of our inherent compatibility. It's a beautiful song, man. I wish I understood more of it up front, but I feel like, again, this is the kind of song that it's a slow burn in the mind of us listeners where over time we'll pick up more and more and more, including the meaning here. But beautiful from top to bottom. We are at the last song, ladies and gentlemen. This one's MLK. Let's jump in.
Sleep tonight, and may your dreams be realized. If the thundercloud passes rain, so let it rain down on me. So let it be. So let it be. Sleep tonight, and may your dreams be realized. If the thundercloud passes rain, so let it rain. Let it rain on me.
A sort of spiritual end to this album. It felt as though like God himself is narrating down to us. In the vocal production, you can hear all of the echoing effects as though like God's booming voice coming from above and permeating all of the atmosphere in the clouds, in the stratosphere, down to Earth itself. And usually that kind of feeling paired with like a spiritual drone where like you have one very warm fluid note that kind of serves as the melodic floor or bass line that can routinely be returned to and establish a very, very like cathartic feeling. Also, apologies for the camera breaking down. I'll pause it after I do my analysis of MLK here, but I like this one. I like that it's a very calm ending to this album. I feel like a lot of what we experienced here felt more subtly intense if I had to like take the whole record into account. So by the end here, I almost feel a little bit like energetically worn because of how much is going on. And I don't know, I feel like we ended in such a human place, even with the ums, the the M's, that delivery there. It's a very human thing to do, and Bono is just so good at re-engaging our own humanity, whether it's through the breathing, these little like vocal blips, almost like ad-libs you could say, but when we're humming along, that's exactly what it is. We are literally singing a song in our mind that we cherish and love so much. And of course, if it's about Martin Luther King Jr., if he has a dream, we would like to see that dream realized. It's important that all of us keep this kind of dream within us as individuals, because it's not something that only one man or person can do themselves. It requires each and every single one of us to have this intrinsic belief that we can all build a better world for one another. And to believe that is to act that, is to hum that, is to sing that, is to say that, is to embody that. So to me, this song, it's like a welcoming of whatever these dreams are, however lofty, however much of a long shot, right? This utopia, this world where we all get along, it's actually tenable if each and every single one of us kind of follow through. But in the end, we still want to give credit where credit is due and honor those who have been so brave, such as Martin Luther King Jr., to put these messages out there in the first place for so many of us to attempt to kind of, let's say, exercise in this world. Let me return to you guys with a fixed camera, and then we'll discuss the whole album. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so let's see how long my camera lasts before dying once again. But awesome album from start to finish. I have a lot of high-level notes that we'd like to get into, and then I'll give you guys my top 3 songs as well as a few honorable mentions. But right away, man, this is a very, very atmospheric album. Super experimental. I feel like the focus was more on creating beautiful ambiance than it was to create very obvious like melodic hooks, whether it was about the guitars, the vocals, the bass, whatever elements you really want to like hone in on. I don't think it necessarily matters, because everything played a massive part in producing these beautiful atmospheres. But in so doing, they also created a lot of these interesting emotional textures that to me were not as obvious. And I think that's just like the nature of a lot of like experimental music and albums that kind of follow this like atmospheric world building approach, because it doesn't necessarily feel like the tight, concise rock that we're normally used to, where you have discernible structure from your verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and then you kind of plug and play the instruments where they go. Instead, the effort is to create this beautiful stream of consciousness that kind of fills up the box of the room. But the thing is, the box of the room is an inherently flawed assumption, because it's not a box. It is whatever shape that U2 wants to create, and we're here to kind of unpack the funhouse of it. And I think because a lot of the themes took more of a sort of spiritual bent to them, whether they were about hope, war, human suffering, the connection that we have with others, I feel like those broad themes, they even transcend themselves, and that kind of ideas helped through the melodic atmosphere. I almost want to say like a lot of these songs, they, despite them being like cohesive within themselves, they almost work better when strung together in this manner. Like the tantamount example I have is Promenade and 4th of July. Those two kind of felt like brother and sister. But even more holistically, I felt like a lot of these songs worked well together, even if, you know, from song to song the themes may change. The beautiful atmosphere that's created, even though it may change in its form, because it's all coming from a similar source of energy, just felt extremely consistent to me. I also wanted to note, so in addition to all of those like unique emotional notes that we get from each of the songs, I feel like within any given song, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I wrote down a bunch of artists that I was kind of reminded of throughout this listen. Just to restate a few, I had Coldplay, Depeche Mode, Pink Floyd, Radiohead, The Cure, and then I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I wrote a few others down here. Phil Collins, Muse, Porcupine Tree, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Earth Drive, and Need to Breathe. At various points throughout this listen, I was reminded of those artists, not for their entire body of work by any means, but for specific elements. And a lot of it comes down to the atmosphere. And I feel like a lot of those artists and bands that I'm referencing here, what drew me into those bands is kind of what is a bit of a mainstay for U2. It's this atmosphere building, the yearning for more, the expansive growing of each song, and there's no obvious direction for that growth to occur. But wherever we go, it's a beautiful, lovely place to be. You can almost think of it as like the expanding of the universe, where 13 billion years ago or whatever it was, we have nothing, and then all of a sudden we have all of this something that is growing exponentially into more, and we don't necessarily know how far that will take us, and if at some point the heat death of the universe undoes everything that we've experienced together and the things that are possible for all of the universe to experience. But the thing is, we're all glad that it happened, and it's a constantly growing thing. So I even feel like U2's music, in a weird sense, transcends itself, and that's one of the reasons why I like critiquing art, analyzing art, experiencing art, sharing our views on art is so endless and fruitful, because you can analyze one piece of music, one painting in a museum, and 100 of us will have 100 different opinions on what it means to me, what it means to you, what it should mean to others. The dialogue is endless. Let me talk about this in terms of the other albums we listened to. So given that this was an art rock album, I kind of had the idea that this was going to take more of an experimental approach just overall compared to Joshua Tree, compared to Actung Baby. And I think where I'm at with this album is it's a fun listen, but I don't get it as much as I probably need to in order to rate this more highly. So in my opinion, of the 3 albums I've listened to thus far, The Unforgettable Fire is probably going to be in 3rd place for me. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, but I think melodically, because there's not as many hooks to sort of sink our teeth into, it's harder to memorize some of the melodies of these songs, and maybe even harder to understand, because the growth of the melody doesn't necessarily track the movements we're used to. So in terms of like catchiness, I feel like there's a lot less in this album than, let's say, in Joshua Tree. But yeah, I would probably go Joshua Tree, Actung Baby, then Unforgettable Fire. In terms of the songs on this record that really spoke to me, I had a handful of honorable mentions. I tried to trim this list down. So honorable mentions in no particular order are Promenade and 4th of July, Indian Summer Sky, and Elvis, Presley, and America. And I think of the 3 in the honorable mentions here, the one that is most likely to transcend into the top 3 would probably be Elvis, Presley, and America. But like I said, that one's going to require further re-listens to wrap my brain around. but awesome tracks nonetheless. But the top three that I have, first, in third, is Pride in the Name of Love. Super pop rocky feel. Like overall, I would say this may be the most straight up song that U2 put out on this record. The In the Name of Love hook, that just seals the deal. And I love Bono's vocals on this, just going absolutely nuclear in some moments. Great chord progression, great shifting and dynamics in this song. Just an all-out banger from top to bottom, and I'm glad we kind of got this one very early on, because I think it gave me a lot more steam to kind of work through the more ambient songs that followed. And I think, I should have put Wire as an honorable mention, but I think having this right before Wire 2 was an interesting juxtaposition because of how texturally crazy Wire was. So Pride gets third. Then in second, I give to Bad. Awesome structurally, awesome from a production standpoint, and the two notable ramps that brought us to the wide awake moments, absolutely to die for. I feel like in this song, the highest highs were felt at the wide awakes. And for me, maybe it's a bit of a bandwagon take or basic take, whatever, but I love the highest high moments in an album. Usually my bias will be clear, and one of those songs will make it into the top three. And in my opinion, Bad, in a weird sense, is almost one of the emotional linchpins of this whole record. And so I'm glad that apex moment occurred not once, but twice in the same song. So awesome work there. But in first place, I give to the Unforgettable Fire, the self-titled track. It just had my favorite melody. Absolutely. Beautiful groove, awesome melody, great atmosphere, beautiful delivery from Bono, again with a lot of the breathiness, the way that contributes to the overall expansive nature of the atmosphere, really making the sort of like you could call it the width of the track, but I almost want to call it like the four-dimensional growth, whatever it is. There's a lot of energy that feels like it's going somewhere that I cannot quite trace, but I know it's flowing. And if you think about physics for a minute, just because we've been talking about physics on and off throughout this reaction, generally speaking, the way to conduct any scientific experiment is going to be in a closed system, and the things that you'll be able to observe are going to be within that system. If there's energy that comes from outside of the system impacting what we have within, then it's no longer closed and therefore not a part of what we're observing. And oftentimes in scientific experimentation, those are going to be like confounding unobserved variables that we don't quite have the explanations for. And often within U2's tracks, I'm feeling like I understand 85% of how this atmosphere is created, but there is still a very necessary to grab onto 15% that I'm missing, that had I known would allow me to like properly analyze the entirety of this atmosphere. And maybe that's just the thing with U2, is our inability as listeners to like on a first pass understand how they're able to create all of this beauty is kind of the magic of their work. So I think if I'm in a three-dimensional plane, U2, they are in a five-dimensional plane, giving me a lot of amazing experiences that I partially understand and some of which I do not. My hope over the years as I listen to U2 going forward is that more of where those sources of energy comes from are obvious to me, but I'm also okay with just living in their magic and not knowing the answers. So that's my top three: Pride, Bad, and then Unforgettable Fire. Please let me know what your thoughts are on this record in the comments section down below. But thank you once again to Ben for the album request. I hope you enjoyed my reactions today. If you yourself would like to request an album reaction, you can do so by using the first link in the description box below. That is the best way to support my channel. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and peace.